In today's Leeds news, Leeds released financial report. Manchester United and Leeds game confirmed. Fixture changes. Carl Darlow's Leeds gamble paid off. And possible Matteo Joseph exit route. Morning, folks. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the Leeds View for Thursday, the 2nd of April, with your Leeds United news. Jerry here. It's a bit of stuff to get stuck into. Today's a beautiful spring morning across Ireland. I hope you're having a really good day. I hope your week is going well. And we've got some stuff to talk about. If you could stick a like on this video, it is still the #1 way to support the channel. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, maybe consider hitting the subscribe button as well. It's free, costs you nothing. You can do that if you want to help us to continue to grow. You can also check out the podcast from last night. Myself, Jerry, and Paul, who were trying to predict the run-in for the last four teams for the last 7 games of the season. Bit of fun. Would love to get you involved in that as well. There's also another one coming out tonight. Leeds That, Max from Leeds lately, Maddie from Imagine Not Being Leeds, Luke from Art to Know Better. We're all in to have a bit of a chat. Slightly different format tonight, more chopped up and squished together. But you can check that out later on this evening as well. And there'll be another one out tomorrow night to check out as well. Outside of that, we got a bit of stuff to get stuck into. And we'll start off today with the sexy financial time of the year. Right, it is that time of the year where the financial reports come out and we get to see just how healthy the football club is or how not so healthy it is. But at this time round, it's a pretty decent result for Leeds United. There's some really interesting elements in this year's report. We've seen some record-breaking commercial revenue and financial growth from Leeds. We've also seen a pre-tax loss from the club as well. Now, the pre-tax loss and a PSR loss are two very, very separate and different things. We'll go through that in a bit more detail for those who want it or need it as we go through this. But in general, it seems to be a very positive report from Leeds United. And this covers the period of time in the Championship, or last year in the Championship for the 24-25 season. But it did see Leeds bring in £137 million from revenue streams, which is a Championship record. That's up 7% on the previous year, which was also Leeds' Championship record as well. So that shows really strong growth year on year. I mean, £137 million from revenue for a Championship club is very, very substantial. Now, the commercial revenue also increased with this as well. That went up by 34% to £58.1 million. And that will include the deals with Red Bull on the shirt and any kind of commercial sponsorship deals that the club did at that point. So again, in a PSR world, that is hugely important revenue for Leeds to be able to get. That's money the club can actually spend then on transfers as well. But the interesting part about this is that fee last year in the Championship is more than Leeds earned in any of the 3 seasons we were in the Premier League for under the old ownership. And that shows some pretty strong financial management behind the scenes of the football club. The Athletic have reported that not only is that a massive number from a Championship perspective, but it would also be the 9th highest commercial revenue of any English club, including the Premier League. And that's coming from a side that were sitting in the Championship at that time. So again, fairly impressive and gives you hope that this season, the Premier League ones come out this time next year, that's even higher again as a Premier League club. Matchday revenue also went up by £31.6 million. That's as a result of the increase in the ticket prices, which is never great, but at least that's money you can see directly going in to the football club. And broadcasting revenue fell by £14 million down to £47.2 million. And that's likely to skyrocket for the Premier League ones next season, up over that £100 million mark, which would be a significant difference at that point. Leeds also were in year 2 of their parachute payments. That sees a roughly about a £10 million drop year on year in the parachute payments. So again, taking all that into consideration. Yeah, but Leeds did register a pre-tax loss of £49.2 million for the year ending June 2025. Now, this set of results does include the sales of Glenn Kamara, Priest Somerville, Jorginho Rutter. It doesn't include Archie Gray because he was sold just before the PSR deadline the year before that. So it's still a lot of player sales in that. But there were also players that came in. The pre-tax loss of £49.2 million is actually still down on the previous year's pre-tax loss, which was £60.8 million. And as I say, it's not PSR, it's a pre-tax loss. The difference between these is pre-tax losses take into consideration every single penny the club spends on absolutely everything, from the players' wages to the academy to toilet roll in the stadium to cleaners to electricity. All of that's included in that. PSR only is the footballing side of it, doesn't include the academy, doesn't include the women's team, doesn't include infrastructural spending either. So there are significant differences in those two. One of the big increases that Leeds did see over this period of time was the club's wage bill, and that shot up by a considerable amount. Now, that also coincides with the returning of Brendan Aronson to the club, who was on a Premier League wage at that point. Joe Rodon coming in from a Premier League club, along with every other player Leeds brought in over the summer. There were also promotion bonuses that would have been included in this, and they are substantial as the incentive to get the club back into the Premier League. And Leeds' wage bill for that year, including all of that, was £107.7 million, and that went up 28% year on year. Now, to put that in context, Sunderland's spend on wages was £54 million, and that gives you an idea that when we came into the Premier League summer, why Sunderland were in a position to be able to spend a lot more money on than Leeds United, because they had that huge wage bill gap by not having Premier League players from previous years and wages on their books. Now, one of the most positive results that have come out of this full stop is related to the club's debt. Leeds United's club debt fell from £128.3 million down to £16.3 million, which is a hell of a drop in a single year. And that comes from 49ers Enterprises investment, as well as everything else that came into the club. But it does show that the money that came in allowed Leeds to spend in the summer. £108 million came in directly from investors as part of all of this as well. So again, it puts Leeds United in a really healthy position. Football finance expert Kieran Maguire described it as a pretty impressive result given the context of a lack of parachute payments and being in that second year and just being a championship club in general. But what it does show, and this is where people's opinion will come into it, there are people who comment on a regular basis on this channel who just don't like the 49ers Enterprises ownership. There are people who just don't like ownerships full stop. We've had our share of really crappy owners over the last 30 years, so it's understandable that that is there. But putting all that to one side and looking at this from a purely financial and health of the football club perspective, the current ownership have put Leeds United in probably the most healthy financial position they've been in a considerable amount of time. There's more money coming in. There's higher spends there as well. The football club, the squad, everything looks in a much healthier position. Now, you can criticise the recruitments all you want. That's fair enough. That's a separate thing. But in terms of the stability of Leeds United financially as a football club, it's in a much better position than it was the last time we were in the Premier League. Significantly more. There's more equity there. There's more money to spend there. There's more liquidity there. It seems to be in a really, really healthy position. I mean, Kieran Maguire gave it a B+ as far as financial results go. So if this continues forward over the next couple of years and Leeds can maintain the Premier League status, it puts the club in a really healthy position and a very strong footing to build on in the future. You can let me know your thoughts on this in the comments, but we'll move on. We had the news on the Leeds United Manchester United friendly at Croke Park in Dublin yesterday. It has now been confirmed. Leeds will play Manchester United in Croke Park in Dublin on the 12th of August. It's a Wednesday night with a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. Season ticket holders and members can get their tickets for that game from today at 4 p.m. and general sales go on through Ticketmaster at 9 a.m. on Friday the 10th of April. Leeds United's Chief Business Officer Maury Eisenberg had the following to say about returning to Ireland. We are excited at the prospect of returning to Dublin again this summer. Our support in Ireland is huge, which was demonstrated last year. Croke Park is one of the most historic venues in the world, and we are looking forward to renewing our rivalry with Manchester United in what will be the first football match in the stadium since 2009. It'll be the first time two Premier League clubs have ever played each other in Croke Park. It'll be the first time that two English clubs have ever played each other in Croke Park. I think it's the first time that clubs have ever played at Croke Park. And we covered yesterday why this is such a big deal, given the history of Croke Park and everything that goes along with it. And to have that game of those two sides in that ground will be phenomenal. I'm going to be jumping on my tickets today. I can't wait for this. It's going to be a phenomenal experience. If you're a Cop fan, if you're in the Cop, or if you're in the South Stand and you're looking at where you should sit in this, Hill 16 is where you want to get your tickets. That's going to be where the core should be for this game. Try and get your hands on those ones if you can. But we'll move on for now. Quick fixture update for you now as well. Leeds away fixture at Tottenham Hotspur in the London Stadium has now been moved for TV. The game will now take place on Monday the 11th of May with an 8 p.m. kickoff, and that has been moved for TV with Sky Sports covering this one. This follows the movement of Leeds United's home game against Burnley, which has been moved to a Friday night kickoff. So we've got two more evening kickoffs under lights to look forward to. We'll see what the Spurs under Roberto De Zerbi look like when we get down there at that stage. Could be an important part of the season. Some interesting predictions in tonight's prediction video around Spurs, which I would definitely check out if you get a chance. We'll move on. Karl Darlow last season showed that he was a calming influence and a very safe pair of hands for Leeds United when Daniel Farke decided that he needed to make a change from the issues that he was having with Illan Meslier around that time. I think issues is probably the best way just to put it for now. And that also coincided then with Leeds United going on a really impressive run and winning the title in the Championship. This season, Daniel Farke had to call upon Karl Darlow again after Lucas Perry had some less than impressive performances. Not the same issues as Meslier, but didn't live up to what Leeds were hoping to bring in the summer. And again, that coincided with Leeds' best run of this season. He's had a phenomenal time with the Wales camp recently as well. He's become a Welsh international since he signed for Leeds United. So it's been going really well, and he's definitely a calming presence for Leeds United to have in goal this season. But Darlow doesn't know what next season holds for him. Himself, along with pretty much every goalkeeper bar Lucas Perry, are all out of contract this summer, and he doesn't know what the future holds, at least at this point. But he's very happy with his move to Leeds United, and looking back on it, he thinks he's made the right decision. Darlow is now 35 years of age. He's in the latter part of his career, but doesn't show signs of slowing down at this point, and would be very much a player I would like Leeds United to hang on to next season, even for another year if they possibly can. But he has looked back at his time and when he signed for Leeds United and said that the move to Leeds came at an absolutely perfect time. And speaking to the Leeds United podcast, he said the following: I think it came at the right time for me. I was at Newcastle. I've been there a long time, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the place. I love that club. But at that time, I wasn't playing and I wasn't getting any younger. I went on loan to Hull. I wasn't going to be second choice, and I didn't want to play in that third choice role because I felt that I could give more than that still at this time of my career. So yeah, it was exactly the right time, and thankfully Leeds United wanted me, and yep, the rest is history. The rest is history. He has a championship title to his name. He's got Premier League appearances. He's got World Cup qualifier experiences for the Welsh international side. It's been a really good period of time for Karl Darlow, and again, comes across as a really good guy. Really, again, I keep saying the word calming influence. He does definitely give you a little bit more calm at the back as well. The Leeds will need to upgrade that goalkeeping position regardless in the summer. We've already talked about that with the exclusive we had on Saul Bryn earlier this week. You can check that out if you want to. But Leeds have to look at the goalkeeping situation across the board, not just first choice, but second and third as well. Maybe Alex Kearns stays, maybe Karl Darlow stays, maybe Lucas Perry goes, maybe he stays as well. But Leeds will have to look at it in some way, shape or form. We'll keep an eye on that one. Let's move on. We're into some rumour mill territory here and talking about Matteo Joseph. And Leeds United striker Matteo Joseph is having, I suppose, what you'd classify as a fairly middling loan at Real Mallorca in La Liga so far this season. Middling in as far as he's gotten plenty of minutes, he's played plenty of matches, he's started lots of games, but he hasn't really got the goal and assist output that Leeds himself or Real Mallorca would have wanted to see this season. Joseph has publicly stated that he would like to stay at Real Mallorca next season. He said that I'm happy here. Why would I not want to be happy? If I can continue to be happy somewhere, then I should try and stay there. So that's what he wants, but they're not in a position where they're expected to be able to afford to buy Matteo Joseph next summer. They're also not in a position where they could be in La Liga next year. They could very easily drop out of that. They're fighting in a relegation battle right now. And from a Leeds perspective, another loan might not be exactly what Leeds want to do with him. From a Leeds perspective, they see Joseph as a long-term prospect. We've said that repeatedly. The loan was designed for a couple of reasons. One, to get him game time, continue his development, improve him, and get him in a position where he could come back into the Leeds United first team, or at the very minimum, increase his value. And that hasn't exactly happened at this stage. Now, according to some loose reports this morning, and pinch of salt territory with this, there is claims that there is championship interest from Wrexham in Matteo Joseph this summer. The report states that they're looking at a bit of in and around £8 million for Joseph once the window opens, but that's likely to be well short of what Leeds United value Matteo Joseph at further down the line. So at this point, you could be in a potential situation where Leeds might look to loan Matteo Joseph out next year to the Championship, and maybe Wrexham is a good place to go. They're chasing the playoffs this season. They'll likely, if they don't get up, be chasing them again next year. And maybe that gives Leeds what they want. Matteo Joseph playing in a side competing at the right end of a table, competitive minutes in a very competitive league in the Championship that might help him. He's got a bit of time left on his contract, so there's no huge rush right now for Leeds United to sell. The issue will be what happens in the summer. Matteo Joseph is likely to come back to Leeds and not want to be around the place. He's already expressed a desire to move on already. So you're probably looking at another summer where a player wants to be away from the club. How Daniel Farke and Leeds decide to deal with this. Do they cut their losses with him? Do they want to have a disruptive influence around the club? Assuming he comes back with that mindset and doesn't come back in trying to force his way into the side. But given the amount of minutes he's played this year in La Liga and given the output from that, I don't think he's proven he should be a first team player for Leeds United. Definitely not as a Premier League player. There's still growth to Matteo Joseph. There's still lots of time for him as well. There is clearly a decent striker in there. I'm a big fan of that near post run that he likes to do. But there's a lot of growth personally needed from the player as well. And that in terms of attitude and conduct over the next couple of months as well. So we'll see if that happens over the summer. We'll see what he comes back with. But yeah, interesting that there's some teams popping up in Wrexham. We're linked or mentioned that briefly last year with him as well. So it's an interesting one. We'll keep an eye on it. Folks, that'll be it for me today. Slightly longer than normal because of the financial results. But we have the podcast from last night, me, Paul and Jerry predicting the running, as well as tonight's podcast with Leeds Stat. Imagine not being Leeds or to know better. And Max from Leeds Lately to do their predictions. You can check that out later on tonight. Outside that, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See you later.